Hello guys, welcome back. And this is a new series where we'll be playing with Flutter and SQLite together. So basically SQLite is used for persistence and data storage locally. So imagine a scenario where you have to fetch a list of items from the API or other servers, and then when you store it locally, if the user does not have internet available or if his data is turned off, then we can show what is available locally, which was stored previously when he had the internet connection active. So that's what we'll be looking at. And in this video, we'll be looking at how to integrate SQLite with Flutter, and we will be implementing the singleton pattern. So I'll be explaining what a singleton pattern is, and we will be exploring it in depth later when we go. So after that, we'll be also doing the CRUD operations. And in this video particularly, we'll be looking at how to do the create and read operation. So we'll be building a simple Flutter application which will have 2 to 3 screens, and it will be a wallpaper app in which you can add a wallpaper by inserting the image link and title, description, category, etc. And also in the future videos, we will add a feature for adding it to favorites, and then we can view all our favorite wallpapers in another list in a separate page. Right? So let's get started. So I'll be creating a new Flutter app from the scratch. So let's just run the Flutter create command. I'll name it wallpapers app. Also SQLite. So this will create us the initial default Flutter app. Okay, so it has created as the default app. Let's just open it with VS Code. So if you haven't seen this, this is the shortcut for opening. This is basically the shortcut for opening a folder in VS Code. I actually opened the folder, current folder. I should first navigate to that. So cd papers app. Now we can just run code dot and it will open as the VS Code editor in the particular folder. I'll just boot up my emulator so that we can work with it. So here we have the default Flutter app. The Flutter create command has created this for us. We'll just remove everything except the main function. Let this be there. And for now, we don't have any custom widget classes, so let's just name it. Just give it as scaffold, and the title has to be changed, right? Okay, and we can remove all this documentation, the comments. So we're good to go. So we have our default main app and the my app first stateless widget, which has scaffold. Later on, we'll replace the scaffold with dashboard, and then we'll navigate from dashboard. Okay, so before going ahead, we need to import certain dependencies. So to do that, I have a few tabs open in my Chrome. So I'll leave the link in the description, or you can also search for SQLite. We'll be using 2 dependencies. One is the SQLite and the path provider. So we will have to copy their dependencies, the versions. Now let's put it over here in the dev dependencies in pubspec.yaml. And there it goes. This is hit Control S, and that will give us the dependencies. And if we get x equals 0, we are good to go. Yep, we got x equals 0. That means it has implemented the dependencies, imported the dependencies. So now we have, let's just create a new folder. This will be called as database, and inside this we will create a file called as access database. So this is where we'll be creating a singleton pattern class. So let's just create a class called as access database. So this class, before that, let's import a few packages from our dependency. So we'll be needing this slide API, and we'll be needing SQLite, this one. So we have to import it. Okay, we need to create the instance of the database. Before that, we need to create a connection, right? So instead of creating multiple objects here and there, we will be creating a singleton pattern. So basically, when we implement singleton pattern, we will be having a global access point to one object, which will be used throughout our app. So this is the official documentation of SQLite inside the cookbook of Flutter. I'll just drop the link in the description later if you want to go through the documentation. So here they have given that we need to create a connection to the database. So to do that, we have a function called as open database. So let's just create a database underscore in the sense private members. So this is instantiated. Initially this will be null, right? So we will have to create a getter which will return us the database instance. So let's just say get. We are defining a getter, get database. And for getters, we do not usually write this. The normal function parentheses, we just write the curly brackets, and no need to include this. And this will be returning a future of database. Now, first we'll be checking that if this database is not equal to null, there is no need to create the instance, right? Because we will be only having, if this database is not as equal to null, we do not need to create an instance. We can just return this, the current, whichever is there, we can just return this instance. There is no need to create multiple instances. So this is where the singleton pattern comes into picture. So we return the database. This can be a database. Yeah. And if it is not null, it means that if this condition is not equal to true, that means that this database instance is null. It has not been instantiated, right? So we'll have to instantiate that. So database is equal to, this is called initDB. This function is not been defined. We'll do that in a moment. So we'll just to return this instance. Okay. So now we have this, and we have the get database getter, and we'll have to define the init database. So the init database will return as a database instance in the near future, because there will be some asynchronous operation to be done. So this will be initDB, and inside this we will have to create a database instance. Equals open. Oh, so before we run the open database, before we run this function, we will have to create a path. So to create a path, let's just import the path from this dependency. So now we'll be creating a path based on the default database path, and then we'll be adding our database name to the end of the path. So first, let's just get the default path of db path. Let's just set it path equals get databases path. So this function will return us Okay, so it's in future, so we'll have to use the await keyword, and when we use await keyword, we have to include the async keyword. Okay, so we have that, and now we'll be creating another string. So this will be a final path equals. We will be using join. So basically, what join does is join function is from this dependency, the path. So what it does is it concatenates the database path with our database name. So we'll be providing two strings. So the one is the database path, db path. For some reason, it's not showing me the IntelliSense is not working. So one is the db path, this thing, and oh, okay, my bad. I have written it as th. There will be db. So db path, and the other one would be say the our database name. So our database name would be Wallpaper db, and now we have our path. So basically, what Open Database function takes in is one is the path, and then a function. I'll come to that. So let's just write the path. One is the path, and next thing is before the function, let's just give it a version. So what this version means, this version is basically the database version. So if you whenever you change the schema of the database, you'll have to increment the version. So for now it will be one, the initial version. Then there's something called as onCreate. So this onCreate will run the first time when we create a database, when we create a connection to the database. So this will run the first time, and during this, before that, this function callback will take two things. One is the database db, and another one is version. It's an integer if I'm not wrong. So this version. Yeah, so this is also async. So we'll have to use the await keyword because this takes a few seconds to execute. So we'll have to wait till then. So once we get this, so once we get a callback on for onCreate, we will get the DB instance of DB. So based on this, the first time we will have to execute. We'll have to create a table. So basically, if you're not familiar with SQL is a database. It's a relational database. So in SQL, there are multiple tables, and each table contains multiple records. So these records hold our data, and each record will have headers, and these headers are column headers, and each column header will have its own attributes. Say, for example, there could be an integer called ID, there could be a string called as text, and in this we use something called as text instead of string, and integer will be defined in caps integer. So it's better if I show you. So let's just write a simple command called as create table. So it will be create table name. So table name would be wallpaper. Create table name, and now we just put a bracket, and in this we will be defining the column headers, and the column headers would be first one would be ID. So the ID would be an integer, and it would be a primary key, and it should auto increment. And I'll come to what a primary key is and auto increment does. What auto increment does. I'll just finish writing all the columns first, and we would be needing something called as URL. That would be a text, and we would be needing title, and that would be text. And this is for now. Make it full screen. After text, we need something called as category. Basically, these are all the column headers. So each object would contain an ID, URL, a title, category, and a description. So this is what an object would contain, right? An object of wallpaper would contain this. Basically, in SQL, those are nothing but records. And we have this command over here. So what I have done over here is I have defined an ID. So this ID would be a primary key. Primary key is basically a unique attribute. In this case, it's an integer, but it can be anything. It can be a string also. So by using primary key, we would uniquely identify each record. Say, for example, the first record, the second record, and third record, and it goes on. So when you define or specify this auto-increment keyword along with the primary key, what it does is you do not have to specify explicitly an ID when inserting a record. It will automatically start from say 0 and it will increment to 1, increment to 2, and increment to 3 as you go on adding records 1, 2, 3. So it does that, and these are nothing but strings, URL, text, a title, category, and text. So this is what the create table creates a table, a large table. If you are familiar with Firebase and NoSQL database, this is like a collection. A table is a collection which will hold multiple documents in it. So that's what it is. And okay, now we have the database instance created, and we just basically have to return it. So that let's just do return database, so that this database will be returned over here. And this is giving an error because here this future we haven't used await keyword, and when we use await we have to use async, and this would be future. So this is how we'll be getting the database instance. I'll be explaining everything once again. So before that, we need to also create a single access point to the instance of this class, right? So through that only we could access this, the instance of database. Through that, we will have to define a constructor to access database. This is something unique with Standard. So basically, this defines a private constructor which is only available to this class, and using that we can create an object of this class inside this class. I know it sounds confusing, but trust me, once we write everything and execute, it'll make more sense. So we'll be calling this constructor static final. So static basically defines that this can be accessed by class name, and we do not have to create an object for this outside this class. So this is about the file access database and access database class. I'll be going through this once again. So we have created an instance of database, and then we have created a getter to get this database instance outside this class. And this getter basically checks if the instance is null. If it is not null, we just return the instance of database. Else we call in a DB, which will get us the database and return that. So when we call in a DB, we are basically concatenating two strings. So one is the default path for the database, and the other one is a database name. So after we get this path, we pass it on to open database, which will get us the instance of database, which will then be returned by NetDB. So this open database function takes the path which has been concatenated over here and the version. Now you have to change the version whenever you change the schema. Say if you add a new column, you have to make it a version 2. Then we have an onCreate function, and this function will get us the DB as database instance, and this onCreate runs every time. I mean, only once. It runs on the first time when the connection has been created, and if there are some changes, then the next time when it runs, it will update the version to 2, and then it will add the appropriate changes to that. Now we run the execute command to create a new table with these parameters to it, so that we'll get all the columns needed. We are returning the database instance, which will come over here and we'll get the database instance. Well, if it sounds confusing, don't worry. Later on, when we get the database instance from here to other classes, it will make more sense. Okay, now coming back to the UI, we will have to create a new folder called as screens, and inside this folder, we'll make a new file called as the dashboard or the home page. That's better. So this would be our home page. That will be a stateful widget. here I have created a floating action button, and also this is a new class called as a home page, which is nothing but a stateful visit, and this is what we'll be calling in the as the first page of the material app when the app launches. And in the other page, when we click on the floating action button, we'll go to a new page, and there will be the option to add a new wallpaper object to the SQLite database. So here we have a simple form and a button on which when we click on submit, we will enter all the details into the SQLite database, hence creating an image object or a record in SQL terms. So here I have four text controls: URL, title, the category, and description for all four fields. And I have initializing controls over here. We can put a dot text on that and then access the text inside the controllers. So this is where the on request is. Before starting, we need to get access to our database object. So remember, we had created a singleton instance over here, access DB. So we'll be using that. Since this is an insert operation, we can directly go over here, go to the on pressed, and then we can call it over here, database. Before that, we need to get the access database object, access database, not access database. So we'll get the instance of access database, and then we can get the database object from this by the getter get database, which is over here. It says undefined because we haven't imported SQLite. SQLite. I imported the wrong one. Has to be the API. It's this one. Okay, there's another error since we haven't used await keyword, and when we use await, it has to be asynchronous. After get the database instance, we can call insert on that, and insert basically takes table name. Table name would be wallpapers, and then the values. So basically, values is a JSON. There's nothing but map of string and dynamic. So we pass in these fields. First one would be URL. And remember the naming conventions which we give over here: URL, title, category, and DESC for description. So URL would be underscore URL dot text. So from the text controller, and title category. This has to be title, category, from category, and the last one is description, from description. So we will get the appropriate text from the text fields and we will insert that into the database. And this is also an asynchronous process, so we'll have to use a keyword. So until this is happening, we shouldn't allow the user to click the button again and again, right? So to do that, let's just define boolean is loading equals false, and when this is loading, we should just show circular progress indicator. So before doing the asynchronous operation, we will be setting is loading is equal to true, and after we finish the operation, we will set it to false, and also navigate out of here. Navigate out of pop. So we'll just pop this page and we can go back. For now, let's just comment it up. Later on, we can implement that. And okay, now we have to implement the loader. So to do that, if it will be inside this one. So if not of is loading, if it is not loading, If it is not loading, I should be capital. If it is not loading, then show the text, or else circle or progress indicator has to be shown. Progress indicator, and the color would be white since the background is blue. Yep. So they should do, and also when it's not loading, we have to the user is allowed to do this operation, or else he's not allowed to do that. We can just create an empty function over here. So when we click on save, I just copy pasted a few details. So I just got this image from Pixabay, and I also mentioned all the other parameters. So all the data entry has been done, and now before we click add wallpaper, we will have to just print one statement just to make sure that this has been executed. Just add this print statement so that we get to know things are working. Okay, so now let's just go back, and okay, I'll have to insert it once again. So here we have it. So when I click on add wallpaper, there is a problem. Okay, I think I should restart the app. Now I have restarted the application. Now let's start the insertion. So it says wallpaper added, and as you can see, it was really fast, but there was a loader. And after that, now we have got the inserted values. Now all that is left is to display all the list items in a list view in the dashboard. So let's get into the UI, and then later on, let's display all the items from the inserted database, which we have inserted right now. And later on, so we can add a few more stuff. So here we have created a small feature, but for now it just contains the image hard coded. Everything is hard coded. Later on, we'll get it from the DB. This is the UI, which will be injecting the data later on. So before we go any further, it's always better to modularize our code. So this card, the whole thing with the container, will be a separate widget, right? So that way, along with the padding. So let's just cut the whole thing out, and then we will create a new folder. So I always like to modularize my code in this way. You can choose your own names, but I'll just put widget, and inside this we can have our own custom widgets like this one. So this is our wallpaper card. This is a simple UI. I'm not going to make it too complicated because this is an SQLite tutorial. So this will be SQLite with Flutter tutorial. So I'll just keep the UI simple for now. So we can just return this instead of that. And at the end, there should be a semicolon. And now, say when we import that over here, so now it will be empty, right? And now, wallpaper card. So basically, we have to build a list of these later on. Yeah, so size is missing. I forgot to put the media query size. Declaration was missing. This should go. And we have to remove this. This is not needed anymore. Yeah, so I forgot to take this from here and put it back here because this is a separate widget now. So all the media query will be done over here. So as you can see, the card is built with a separate widget. Now we have to write a query to get all the cards. So this would be, before doing that, it's better we create a custom data model for this. To do that, there's a good website called as JSON to Dart. So in here, we can just put our things which we need. Whole modeling of data will be done over here. Say ID would be 0, just an example we can take. There will be URL, which would be a string, right? For now, I'll just put it on a string. Later on, it will be URL. So you can also give a name. I will call it wallpaper model. So this will get you this class, which will convert JSON into the class model and also from the object to JSON. So you get two different methods, to JSON and from JSON. If you pass JSON, it will return you this type of object of this class, this type. And if you pass a object of this type, you will get a JSON return. So this website is pretty handy. Again, new folder, models, new file, wallpaper model.art, and you can paste it over here. Now we have that class, we'll just save it now. So first we'll be writing a function to get all the list of items, the data models which we have, which we have created over here. So we'll be getting a list of these items, and then based on that, we'll be constructing a list. So let's write a function here, data, get data list. So basically this will return the future of the result will come in future because we are querying the database and it takes time. Future of list of type wallpaper model. So this is what will return from this function. So inside this function, first, as you all know, we need to get the database reference database equals. For that, we have to import the API of SQLite API of KINO here as well. So I'll be doing it in one line. It looks cleaner that way. So basically, access database dot, let's get the access database instance, and then from that we have the get database method. So in one line we have got the singleton reference. So just add the async modifier, and then this another blah blah. Okay, that's all that will get us, so no need to use brackets. And okay, so we got the database. Now we can query the database. So basically we have to do database dot query and table name as we know it's wallpaper. And this will get us, as you can see, this will get us a list of map of strings, which is the future string and dynamic. So this part over here, map of string and dynamic, is a JSON, and I had told you that if we send a map to this function that is from JSON, it takes a map, and in return it returns this object of wallpaper model, wherein which we can access all the properties, variables, URL, title, etc. So what we'll be doing is, first we'll just create a list of this, the local list of, so that it is easier to understand. You can do it in one line, just in a written statement, but this is better to understand. There is something called as list.generate. So this will take the length. As you can see, this will give us a result. So we'll have to store it in result first. Then what list of map. Basically map is JSON. List of string and dynamic. It can be anything, the value, key value pairs. So this will be a result. And it's shown underline because it says it will take some time. You need to use the await keyword. And now for the length, we will be substituting result.length. Since it is a list, we can use that. And this indicates the return statement. It is the lambda function notation. Basically it returns, or else you can also do, you can remove this and put this with the return statement. Either one works. Okay, so now we need to return the wallpaper model, but we need to use this constructor, which is nothing but from JSON. It needs a JSON. The JSON is nothing but the object value at this index. I'll say it once again. So after writing, say for example, the array is list. The array is result in this case. So result of, in this particular index. So this will get us, say, 0th index result, which will be a JSON that will be passed to this constructor. So it will go over here and it will create and return us the wallpaper model instance. And then that will be accumulated by generator and will create a list that will be returned. Inside the function, return statement should be. So here we can return the list. So here we have a function. Now we can call this function inside a future builder. It got crashed. I'll just restart it. So we can wrap this part, our list view. We can just remove this list view, and instead of this, this whole part, we can remove this. Instead of this, we can use a future builder. So basically, future builder is used when we do not know a value in present, and we will be getting a value in future. So future builder, which it will be using. and future builder will take a future. So what is the future? The future would be this, getting the data list, right? So we'll use that as a future. And always the future functions should have this future return statement, else it won't take it as a future over here parameter. Then we have the builder. So basically builder takes a context and a snapshot. So this snapshot will contain our data which we will be getting in future. So if snapshot.data is equal to null, if there is no data, that means we are in present. We haven't yet got the data. So we will just return the future. Return the circular progress indicator. So until we receive the data, till then we will be showing the circular progress indicator. When we receive the data, we can just use the list view to construct the whole list view.builder, and this is just hardcore data right now. After doing this, we'll get the real data. So this takes context and index, and we have to return this list view, or else it won't work. When inside this list view, we will be returning a wallpaper card widget. Okay, so until we fetch the data, till then we'll be showing a circular progress indicator. As soon as we get the data won't be equal to null, so we will get this wallpaper card. So when I restart, it should show a circular progress indicator. Okay, so we made a mistake somewhere over here. So the problem was with our database name, table name. Table name should be wallpapers, and I had written wallpaper over here. So this was the problem. So it was telling that I couldn't find the table name wallpaper. So that's the reason why it was throwing as an error. And I just restarted so that it will work. Okay, so I forgot to give the item count, so it's showing infinite number of cards. So item count should be snapshot.data.length. This should give us only one card. Yeah, we got this. And now we need to pass the data which we got into the wallpaper card. So to do that, first of all, let's just write a constructor called as wallpaper model, and it will take a wallpaper model. Then we need to import this, and then after that we need to create constructor. And now once we got that, we can use the data which is coming from the constructor through this wallpaper model, which dot wallpaper model dot. I'll just copy this so that we can reuse it later on. Dot URL. Oh my god, something popped up the command. So URL, and the same thing will go for the title. The text title. So did I not copy that? Okay, so this would be title, and then the same thing goes for the category. In category, we will be just with this in this part and not the whole one. So this is the dollar notation, so that we can concatenate value coming from the wallpaper model category, and of course the lengthy description. Description. So now there should be an error showing up because we haven't passed the wallpaper model to the constructor, right? So that's the reason why it's showing as an error. So we can just do snapshot.data. So this is the array of wallpaper models, and we will pass one out of that. So as you can see, this is right now coming from the database. but right now you cannot make out the difference since the hard-coded data and the data which was in the database is the same. But let's just add a new one so that we'll be seeing the difference. So to do that, before that, let's just pass this function on to the next page so that we can call this function over there once we finish the addition. So we'll just go to the add wallpaper and we will be needing a final. So we are just implementing a callback function saying that when to tell the previous widget that we have added a new object, and please render it once again. So this is the callback, and from here we have to pass the callback as this get data list. So we get a reference to the function over here. So now we have the reference for the function get data list, and it's simple now. We just have to pop this, and once we do that, we can call our function first and then do that widget dot callback. So we'll call the function. We'll just basically we are querying the database once again after the new insertion. The querying of database is done over here through the by this function get data list, which is actually getting passed to our addition page, adding of new one. So I'll just add a new wallpaper. So here I have a picture of a fox and I've entered the description, category, animal, and the title. So now we'll be clicking on add wallpaper, and as soon as you click on that, it should actually re-render this. Something wrong. Let me check. Okay, so there's a small change to be made. Convert this into just a normal list instead of future. And this now the search state will work now. So yeah, we can just initialize this to this now, and we can, instead of the future builder, we can have list view builder. So this will be gone, and so we'll just have a list view builder. And to do this, instead of snapshot dot data dot length, we'll have to replace that with wallpaper list. But there's one thing to handle, and that is until they are null, we can use a ternary operator. So wallpaper list not equals null. If it is not null, then we can show this. The list view, else we will have to show a circular progress indicator at the center of the screen. Yeah, this should be. Okay, so this will now it will be loading infinitely because we haven't data list. So we have to call get data list in the init state. So now when we refresh the app, we should be seeing the list getting built. Yep, so the list is getting built, and now when we try to add a new, when we add a new wallpaper, I'll just add a new wallpaper. So I have added a flower, picture of flower, and all the title and descriptions. So now when we click on add wallpapers, so you should see a flower coming here. So a flower will come over here because the set state will actually re-render. It will make the uh, framework to re-render this whole page because as you can see, the new list is different from the previous list, right? So whenever there's a change, set state will actually get the new value over here, and it will be built again. The whole thing will be built again. The list will be built again with the new. This part will be added. So that's it for this video. So we have covered the integration of SQLite with Flutter and also the create and read operation. In the upcoming videos, we will be looking at how to do the delete as well as update operations. We'll be implementing the favorite function as well as how to delete a wallpaper and also implementing the next screen, the details of wallpaper screen with the favorite icon. Thank you for watching, guys. I'll be seeing you in the next one.